Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Assalatu Wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Now in this video we'll be looking at some of the control structures for in C programming language. Now as we have seen in the previous programs that the flow of control of the program was from in a linear fashion. Suppose let us visit the previous programs, that is vi space suppose variables.c. Now in this C program, as you can see, whenever you are executing a C program, the C program first looks for the main function and then it sequentially executes all the instructions, all these statements one by one. Now suppose if you want to change this flow of execution based on some condition, suppose you have a program in which you are checking whether which of the variables is greater. Suppose you have two variables a and b and you want to, suppose if the variable a is greater, then you want to display a as the output, and suppose if b is greater, then you want to display b as the output. So for both displaying either a as output or b as output, you need to write printf statements. But if a is greater, then you need to avoid the printf statement for b, and if b is greater, then you need to avoid the printf statement for a. So for that we have something in C program called as control structures, which basically tells the program how the execution should flow. So let us take a sample example, vi space flow.c. So now I'll begin with first insert mode I, and then hash include stdio dot h. Now in the main program, let us take two variables a and b, integer variables a comma b. Now let us say we want to take values from the user so that the program will be a bit more dynamical. So let us first write printf so that we'll inform the user to input two values, give two values \n for new line. Next we'll write a scanf statement so that we can take those two values which the user wants to insert as inputs. So let us write a scanf statement to take inputs. Scanf %d for integer, 2 %ds because we want two values, and then ampersand a for the first variable, ampersand b for the second variable. Now we have the two values which the user has entered. Now to check whether a is greater than b, we can use the greater than operator as a greater than b. But this does not make any sense, because what we want to do is we want to print a when a value is greater and print b when b value is greater. And so for that we have a control structure statement in C programming which is if. So this if statement basically checks whether the condition which is in these two brackets, if it is true, then whatever is written within inside the if statements, those will be executed. The brackets here, the flower brackets here, indicate the region of if, and if the condition which is written in these two brackets is false, then it will skip these lines which will be in these two brackets, and then it will follow after this closing bracket. So right, suppose we are checking the condition whether a is greater than b or not. So I have written the condition a greater than b inside these brackets, and then I want to print that a is, if this condition is true, that is if a is greater than b, then printf a is greater, sorry, a is greater \n. So if the condition a greater than b is true, then I will output that a is greater. Otherwise, now if you want to write the other part, that is b is greater than, then you need to use else, meaning if the conditions of the if statement is false, if this condition a greater than b is false, then it will skip these statements, whatever is within these flower brackets, and then it will execute the statements which are written inside the else part. So in the else part we want to display that b is greater than a, b is greater. So this is how basically a controls one of the control flow statements in C program, that is if else. So if else statement basically specify the condition, and if the condition is true, then the statements which are inside the if block, those statements will get executed. And if the condition is false, then the statements inside the else block will get executed. So now let us check whether the program is executing or not. First escape, then saved :wq. Then to compile this program, you need to write cc space flow.c. As there are no errors, we'll go for the execution output ./a.out. So now give two values. So we will give two values here, 10 and 30. So now as you can see, the output is b is greater. So let us go inside the program. Now here in the scanf we have told ask the user to enter two values. So we are taking two values, 10 and 30, which we have entered in the output, and then it is checking if 10 is greater than 30 or not. As 10 is less than 30, it is skipping these statements. As you can see, a is greater was not printed, and the else part was executed. That's why b is greater was printed. So this is one of the control flow statements which you can use to avoid certain statements based on some conditions. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.